Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We have a lot to talk about tonight. It is rounding up. It is going to be the end of the month of June, marching right into July. Let's do it.
American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is the byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action. Welcome, 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 everybody. So glad to be here for yet another late night stream. It's really great. I just got to hang out with Douglas Kim, the Yellow Knight. I don't know if people are familiar with his YouTube channel. It's really awesome. Just got to spend the evening with him. We went to one of those hip, hip Asian fusion restaurants. It was really, really great. And he's a really, really dedicated guy, really upstanding. So if you haven't checked out the Yellow Knight and Douglas Kim, go and check him out because he is a really great guy. And we had a great chat. He's very dedicated to the Asian community and what they've been up against. He's made documentaries and stuff. That was really, really great. That's why I'm starting this stream a little bit later than usual because I was spending time with Douglas Kim. But hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We have some really big news tonight. Earlier tonight, just in the past couple hours, a member of the Center for Political Innovation had a conversation one-on-one with Marianne Williamson. And we have a recording of that conversation, and we are going to play that recording here later tonight. So I think people are going to want to see this. This is a big deal that this happened. So you want to tweet this out, bring folks around, let them know that we're going to be playing a recording, an exclusive recording of a chat between a member of the Center for Political Innovation and Marianne Williamson. We'll be releasing that. I'll be playing it later on the stream. We'll be tweeting it out and such later. This is a pretty big deal, this chat that just happened. So if you want to create some buzz around that, I would urge people to do so. But there you go. You can do that. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. And the way this works, for those of you who may not be familiar, the way these streams work is I give my opening remarks. That's what I'm doing right now. As I give my opening remarks, I write down your super chat questions. I write them down. And then after the opening remarks comes the roll call. And after the roll call, from there, I answer your super chat questions for the rest of the night. So if there's something you would like me to talk about in the second half of our show, the best thing for you to do is to send me a super chat. I will write it down. I will type it down. And in the second half of our show, I will try to answer it. I generally will give people an answer. It's not always the answer that people are looking for, be warned, but I generally try to give an answer to every super chat that I receive. So send a super chat my way, and I will do my best to give you a good answer in the second half of our show. So we're going to get started with the opening remarks. Before we get started with that, a couple big announcements. People may already be aware of one of these. I already talked about one of these, but we have a new updated flyer. So coming up in New York City on July 10th in New York City, we will be having a great event with Jose Vega, the legendary event disruptor, anti-imperialist from the Schiller Institute, with Chris O'Lully of the American Student Union. Ran for Congress in Vermont, great anti-imperialist Congress candidate in Vermont, law student. He's great. And Nick Barana of the People's Party. He's going to be there as well as with special guest attorneys. And the theme of our event coming up on July 10th will be money and American injustice, how the U.S. legal system targets the poor. It's going to be an awesome event. It'll be in New York City. I hope you can be there. Peter Coffin is going to be there. He's making a documentary of the event. It's going to be very, very awesome. It's going to be a very, very awesome event. I really hope that you can make it. I really, really hope that you can be there. Before the event, we're going to have an anti-war protest. We're going to have a leaflet and an announcement for that soon. That'll be earlier in the day. Our event on July 10th in New York City will start at 7. That's going to be very cool. But then earlier in the afternoon, we're going to have a small, or maybe big, I don't know, it depends how many people come, an anti-war demonstration in the city that we will be having. That's going to be happening as well. So we'll be announcing that. So that's the July 10th. That is the next event. It's coming up. It's not this coming Monday, but the next Monday after that. Monday, July 10th in New York City with special guests and speakers. It's going to be an awesome, awesome event to discuss the legal system and how it's set up, etc. So that's going to be awesome. Then we have another event coming up. And this event we're just announcing today, just went public today. It is a big coalition event, another anti-war demonstration coming up. Humanity for Peace. No more Hiroshimas. And this is a big event. It's endorsed. You can see our logo, the Center for Political Innovation. You can also see the Party of Communists. You can see Liberty Speaks. You can see the Schiller Institute, the People's Party, Rage Against the War Machine, the American Student Union, this Black Hammer. This event is widely endorsed. It's widely endorsed. It is endorsed by libertarians. It is endorsed by the People's Party. It's endorsed by the Schiller Institute. It's endorsed by the Party of Communists. This is turning into a big event that is happening at the United Nations on August 6th. So that's going to be very important. That's next month. And we are official sponsors of that. It's going to be great. I understand there's going to be like a Mozart concert, and there's a lot of plans for this important rally as well. So the website is live, humanityforpeace.net, for that event. That's going to be awesome. So, we are dedicated. Let me just say, we are dedicated to building an in real life movement. I was talking to people about it yesterday, and I was talking about it last night on my stream. And I wrote a note. I don't know if people saw it. I wrote a note on Twitter today. And my note was actually the head of the Libertarian Party, Angela, who's the chair of the Libertarian Party. Not only did she like this note, but she followed me on Twitter after she saw it. But I made a note on Twitter saying what really needs to be said. And I'll just read it out to you, because it explains why are we always talking about events, and why are we always having workshops and seminars? Why are we doing this? There's a reason that we're doing it. I wrote this note today, and this note, it got a lot of appreciation. A lot of people saw the note and they really, really appreciated it. And I'm going to read you this note that I wrote on social media today. I wrote this on Twitter before I left, before I went into the city today. I was done with my work and I went into the city for some meetings, and I decided to write this brief little note. Notice to anti-imperialists. And it was liked by many people, including the chair of the Libertarian Party. She liked it. I wrote, notice to anti-imperialists. Sitting on your ass and calling America an evil, racist settler country is an easy grift certain online personalities have fallen into. So is sitting on your ass and mocking the synthetic left and pandering to the conservative side of the culture war. A lot of people like to listen to these pessimistic, negative messages. There's not much risk involved. You can rake in advertising revenue and Patreon money. But building a real anti-imperialist movement like the Center for Political Innovation is way more dangerous. You have to work with real people. And in our current society, people are very damaged and have serious struggles. You have to build real coalitions like Rage Against the War Machine and work with people that you disagree with. We urgently need an in real life network of real anti-imperialists who can work together and rely on each other for when the crisis intensifies. Passive online entertainment may open the door for some, but it's not enough. This work is much riskier and much more dangerous because it means a lot more. It's way more valuable. People who do this kind of work always get targeted because many are jealous and don't have the strength to do such work. And the government also feels such work is way more threatening. Shit is going to get real, and sooner than you think. We don't create the crisis, but we must intervene when it comes. We have serious work to get done. We have a community and a network to build. And if you want to help and get involved, get involved. If you want to help, get involved. These are serious times. Social media foolishness does not cut it. I am looking for people who are strong enough and bold enough to take responsibility for the future and of their country and for humanity. I'm not looking for an audience. Keep that in mind. That was my message to anti-imperialists that I tweeted out this afternoon. I tweeted it out, and it got a lot of love. The fact that the chair of the Libertarian Party, she saw this, and she was moved by it. She liked me. She liked the tweet, and then she followed me. Right? She's the actual national chair of the biggest third party in the United States. She saw this, she liked it, and she became a follower of mine on social media. That was a pretty big deal. That was a very big deal. And it shows that among people that are serious, this kind of message takes hold. And I really appreciated that. There you go. That was big. And the Libertarian Party, their Science Caucus also tweeted it out. So that was a big deal. We are doing it. And at the end of the day, this is not just, this is not just an internet entertainment thing. We're trying to build, at this point, we are trying to build a real anti-imperialist movement to get real shit done. We are urgently trying to do that. We're urgently trying to do it. And people in our organization are doing it. And one of the people who did that is, shout out to Noah Shank, right? Noah Shank, who's a member of the Center for Political Innovation in Boston, who is a Korean American himself, is very much standing in solidarity with the people of the DPRK. Noah Shank decided to go and see Marianne Williamson in Boston tonight. He's a Boston area member of our organization. And it was wild. He was able to confront Marianne Williamson about Ukraine during the event and then have a conversation with her afterwards. Go and follow Noah Shank. Go and follow him on Twitter. I'm just dropping his Twitter handle in the chat. Noah Shank is a really dedicated member of the Center for Political Innovation. He spoke at our Summit Against Hypocrisy. He's in the documentary that Peter Coffin made of it. Go and follow him on social media. He does great work. Noah Shank is a really, really awesome guy. Just a great anti-imperialist. You can watch him in our documentary. He was at the Summit Against Hypocrisy. Today, just a few hours ago, at a church in Boston, Marianne Williamson had an event about many issues about her presidential campaign. And Noah went to her event. He confronted her about Ukraine at the event. And then afterwards, he had a conversation with her about the Uhuru movement. Now, I don't know if you've heard about the Uhuru movement, but the Uhuru movement, they're a group of activists that are facing 10 years in prison, charged with being Russian agents by the U.S. government. They are facing 10 years in prison, and Tucker Carlson spoke out on their behalf, and Kim Iverson spoke out on their behalf, and Glenn Beck spoke out on their behalf, and all kinds of people have looked at the case against the Uhuru movement, and they said, this is absolutely insane. They're calling them Russian agents simply for organizing in their community, simply for running election campaigns. And it happens that one of the election campaigns that the Uhuru movement has run, I mean, a lot of their election campaigns, one of the issues that's central in their election campaigns is the issue of reparations, which Marianne Williamson says she supports. She's made reparations one of the central planks of her campaign. So based on that, if they're now accusing reparations of being a Russian conspiracy, Marianne Williamson should speak up in support of the Uhuru movement. They're facing this disgusting indictment. They could go to prison for a decade. And for advocating something Marianne Williamson says she supports. So Noah confronted Marianne Williamson. Now, we don't have the video yet of his interaction with her about Ukraine. That was rather intense. But after the meeting, he went up to her and he spoke to her about the Uhuru case. And I want to play the recording. This is Noah's recording of his conversation with U.S. presidential candidate Marianne Williamson about the Uhuru case. Here you go.
I came here because you're one of the most outspoken voices, well, the only outspoken voice in the presidential campaign about reparations, right? During 2020, you made it an issue. So one of the biggest groups that's been running in local elections, but not here, in Florida, Missouri, etc. It's called the People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. They're a group of black socialists that have been...
Oh yeah, I think Carlos told me you were here and you have your...
I gave them a pamphlet, yeah.
Okay, good.
So they've been organizing around reparations since the 70s, since the collapse of the Black Panther Party. So in 2021, they were indicted and accused by the FBI of being like Russian agents, of taking money from the Russians simply for advocating reparations. I'll give you some examples of some of the programs they were running.
So what's the bottom line?
So the bottom line is, I would really like to see if you would be willing to offer your support to them, speak up about it.
Okay, give me one of those flyers.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, that's really important that he did that. It's really, really important, right, that he did that. That was just an audio recording, by the way, right? He had his camera facing down. It was really important that he did that because of the fact that Marianne Williamson is a major candidate for president. She's running in the Democratic primary against Joe Biden. She's a Democrat, and she says that she supports reparations, right, which is the main issue that the Uhuru movement has agitated around. And it's what the FBI is claiming is somehow a Russian conspiracy. The issue of reparations is somehow a big Russian conspiracy. So he confronted her and he said, hey, Marianne, if you support the issue of reparations, you got to support the Uhuru movement that are facing very serious charges. Very, very serious charges at this point, simply for advocating reparations. They're calling reparations a Russian conspiracy, and they can then use this to shut down anything. All these people don't understand that the anti-Russia, anti-China hysteria anti-Russia, anti-China hysteria is opening the door to political repression. It's not just the indictment against the Uhuru movement. It's also the Restrict Act, this ban on TikTok. They claim TikTok is a Russian conspiracy. They want to ban TikTok. Look at the details of the Restrict Act. It's about a lot more than just banning TikTok. It would be handing over your rights to the federal government, a huge sweeping repressive law. Noah is in the chat. And thank you, Noah, for your great work. And that by getting us to be whipped up about Russian propaganda, Chinese propaganda, they're taking away our rights. They're setting the stage for political repression. And this is really important. And so he confronted Marianne Williamson. That was really important that he had that conversation with her. I'm going to be tweeting the video out later, and I hope others do so. But I'm actually going to play another video because this is when Noah went on the Uhuru movement stream. He did a video conversation with the Uhuru movement recently. about, if I can find the clip here, about where's the clip? He did a conversation with the Uhuru movement about the fact that, yeah, here we go, about the repression that they're facing. This is Noah Shank of CPI Boston on a recent Uhuru movement national call. This is Noah.
Does not understand what is, and it also sort of minimizes the anti-colonial struggle that Dr. King himself was involved in his own right. It's important for us to understand that Dr. King was involved in an anti-colonial struggle. And he said as such. In 1957, Dr. King attended the independence ceremonies in Ghana. He came back and clearly defined the civil rights movement within the struggle against colonialism, even as we understand the civil rights movement as what Chairman calls a struggle for democracy from above. You know, we can recognize that what Dr. King wanted was full freedom for African people, and that freedom is not yet, of course, been bestowed upon African people. And the vanguard of that struggle for the freedom of African people, the African People's Socialist Party, for the last year or so, just about, has been under direct attack by the United States government and agencies of the United States government. So it's for this reason that we are holding this meeting with CPI, calling for people to rally behind our demands to drop the charges against the Uhuru 3, underscoring that Juneteenth, not yet Uhuru, African people are not free. Some people like to call it African American Independence Day. Well, African people are not free. So we're calling for people to stand up against these attacks, against Chairman, against the movement, and join us at the monument over at Boston Common on Monday. So to talk more about this, I am going to bring up Comrade Noah Shank. Comrade Noah Shank is from the Center for Political Innovation, and he's out of Boston. So I just want to bring Comrade Noah on to talk a little bit about why he felt it was important to organize this with us.
So yeah, thank you, Matsumoto. What really inspired this event in the first place was when they began unveiling this monument. This was about around the winter, I believe, and it was the hands. I remember seeing the hands. I remember seeing how ugly that it was, and I remember thinking two things. One, that it shows that the way that our ruling class views African people, they see the hands, right? What does a hand do? A hand is something that acts. It is something that manipulates objects. It is a tool. A hand is a tool that is manipulated by a mind, and you know, they don't show the face in this monument. I feel like they intentionally made it ugly. I mean, if you look at the monuments that have been built in place in Africa in collaboration with People's Korea, look at the monuments in Senegal, look at the monuments in Angola, look at how triumphant and beautiful those monuments are, that they're a real a testament to not only the African liberation struggle, but also to the beauty that humanity is capable of creating. And then look at what we have in the common. We have a big piece of shit that looks like horrible things. And two, it called back into mind the hypocrisy of what they are doing to the Uhuru 3. Biden pretends, and the Democrats, they pretend to be these woke saviors of the African people. They gave a holiday that means nothing, while raising police budgets, riding in on a wave of anti-police sentiment. They raise police budgets, they attack the Uhuru 3, they continue to increase hostilities towards African communities. And this is what people are given. It's really disgusting. And that's why I felt that this needed to happen. And and picking Juneteenth, which is a genuine holiday that has been co-opted by the Democrats, I think was important.
So there you...
yeah. Thank you for that. Because one thing we talk about in the what's called the in our platform, Revolution National Democracy.
All right, so that was really important. I mean, we have to do everything we can to stand in solidarity with the Uhuru movement. It is a very, very serious case, and it's very, very dangerous. And we have been raising the Uhuru case, hands off Uhuru, at every opportunity we can. If they can imprison them for being so-called Russian agents, simply for advocating reparations and opposing U.S. weapons to Ukraine, they can jail anybody. And it's just like the Restrict Act. And, we're getting a banner made for our upcoming rally. Maybe I'll show you. Maybe I'll have a chance to show you. This is the banner that we're going to have at our upcoming rally. Can I pull up the image of this banner? I think I can. Let me see if I can get this image to you, because it's important. I want people to see this. I really want people to see this, because it's extremely important. It's extremely important that people see this, because the war at home against our civil liberties and our rights is tied in very closely with the wars around the world. It's extremely, extremely closely tied in. There is no separation. There is no separation whatsoever. And so we need to make this connection for people. We really need people to understand this. We really need people to get it. We need people to get it. So this is actually the banner that we're having made. Let me just download it here. And this is the banner we're going to have in the streets of New York City on July 10th, when we're in the streets for our action that we're going to have. Hold on. There we go. Let me just pull that banner up. There we go. All right. And this is the banner that we will have with us in the streets of New York City. This is the layout for the banner that we just ordered. Right? Beautiful. CPI President Elizabeth Young made it. Peace with Russia, peace with China, no World War III, no police state. That's basically what we're calling for. Peace with Russia, peace with China, no World War III, and no police state. Because the war on our rights and our civil liberties and the danger of a new world war with Russia and China, it is inevitably connected. And they're using fear of Russia and fear of China. They are using that as a way to prepare and psych up the population for a police state at home and for a war around the world. And we've got to oppose it. We got to do everything we can to oppose it. We absolutely must oppose it. So that's what we've got coming up. Great work from Noah. Noah's a great member of the Center for Political Innovation. He does great work. And we're building an in real life organization. We're trying to get real stuff done. That's what we're trying to do. And that it must be done. It must be absolutely done. We have work that we must do. And, we're talking about doing stuff on the West Coast in the fall. Details for that are pending. We just had a great event in Missouri. I'll be editing the video of that soon. Just a great meetup with people around the country. We're building an anti-imperialist network. We are building a ship before the coming storm. We are building the ark before the storm comes, because things are going to get serious very soon. The crisis is coming. If you look at what's happening and the economic situation, we're heading for a big fallout. And if you look at what Joe Biden is doing and all the danger and the weapons pouring into Ukraine and the threats on China, and you look at the economic forecasts that are coming, you look at the streets of France right now, where people are in the streets rebelling, all of this is leading toward a big conclusion. And the game is going to change pretty soon. Right now, people are only joining organizations People are only joining organizations because they want to, because they feel like it, because it's interesting. All right. They're interested. They want to do anti-war protests. They want to do events. However, we're going to come to a point soon where people won't be joining organizations simply out of interest. People will be joining organizations out of necessity. People will be joining organizations because they have no other choice. And when that happens, that'll be a big game changer. And when that happens, how many likes you've got will not matter. How many shares on Facebook you've got will not matter. How many tweets and followers you've got, none of that will matter. All that will matter when we hit strategic equilibrium is going to be how much of a real network we have built. We urgently must build a real network of anti-imperialists. And that is what the Center for Political Innovation is focused on doing. Building a real anti-imperialist network where we support each other. We have each other's backs. When the FBI and the feds came for the Uhuru movement, what did we do? A week later, we honored them at our conference and supported them. And when the Rage Against the War Machine rally happened in Washington, D.C., what did we do? We became official sponsors of the rally. And when our friend Scott Ritter was pushed out of that rally, what did we do? We hosted a beautiful reception for Scott Ritter. It was just beautiful, right? Scott Ritter is a brave anti-imperialist who's been smeared and targeted in so many ways. And he was pushed out of the Rage Against the War Machine rally. They wouldn't let him be part of it because of some bullshit. And let's talk about some of the bullshit later, right? Let's talk about some of that, right? Why not, right? Why we're on here. Let's talk about these things. It's important to talk about what's going on. I mean, but this is what we did when he was pushed out of the rally, the Rage Against the War Machine rally, the most important anti-war protest and the biggest anti-war protest since the Iraq War days. Was a very large demonstration. It was a really important rally that happened. And when he was pushed out of it over some bullshit, we decided it was our job to step up to the plate and give Scott a platform. So we did. And here's what happened. This is the CPI. This is when Scott Ritter took to the stage at the anti-war rally, at our reception after the Rage Against the War Machine rally. This is when Scott Ritter came up to the stage. This is what happened. Hold on. Here we go. This is that great moment, February 19th in Washington, D.C.
He's a hero right here. We love you, Scott. We love you. Go ahead and give us some words. Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. To be honest, I thought I was just coming here to a reception to say hi to people, and speaking is hopefully it's a bonus. Listening. First of all, thank you.
Yeah, that was a great moment. That we were able to provide that platform for Scott Ritter. It was really, really great. It was really, really beautiful. And that was the role that the Center for Political Innovation played. Not only did we financially support the Rage Against the War Machine rally, but we were able to give a platform to Scott Ritter when he was pushed out of it. That was really, really great. And, we're doing a lot of things. I mean, we're getting real shit done. We had our great conference to counter Joe Biden's conference, the Summit Against Hypocrisy. And then, I don't know if folks remember, but I'll remind folks that the president of Taiwan came to the United States, Tsai Ing-wen. She came to the United States to beg for more weapons. She wants to escalate tensions with China. She wants the USA to pour more weapons onto the island of Taiwan. And that would kill her own people. I mean, if there was ever a war, it would be on the island of Taiwan the fighting would happen. It would be her own people on the island who would die. On top of that, a lot of Americans would probably die in such a confrontation. Biden said that the USA would intervene on behalf of Taiwan, even though the USA doesn't even recognize Taiwan diplomatically. It recognizes only one China. Regardless, it would be a disastrous situation. All of our money is being poured into Taiwan. So when Tsai Ing-wen came to the United States to beg for weapons, we made a point of confronting her, and 5 CPI members, including myself, we confronted her on the streets of New York City. This is what happened. This is the moment when we confronted Tsai Ing-wen. I'll just pull up the video of that. Hold on. Here we go. This is what happened.
What the American people want. All the polls show that the American people don't want a new war. The American people are sick and tired of our money being wasted on bombs and weapons and destruction, provoking a war with China, provoking a war with Russia, while our trains are derailing, people in the United States are suffering, our water's not being purified, our railroads are falling apart, our power grids are falling apart, and yet we pour more and more weapons and money into some stupid confrontation with China. China is not our enemy. Wall Street bankers are our enemy. No more provocations against China. China is not our enemy. 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 Get out of our country. Stop trying to sell war in our country. Stop trying to sell war in our country. We don't want a new war with China. We love America and we don't want a new war with China. China is not our enemy. Stop trying to sell war. Get out of our country. Stop trying to sell war. China is not our enemy. I'm a patriotic American. I love my country and I don't want World War III.
That happened, right? Again, we need to build an anti-imperialist movement. We are doing great stuff, right? And we are getting stuff done, right? And we just had a great gathering in Missouri. Just a great weekend of Marxist classes. Great presentations were given by members of the CPI, and we'll have video of that soon. We're about to do our big event coming up in our event that's coming up here in New York City. So be there July 10th. I guess I'll show the thing on the screen one more time. But I want to talk some about this, right? Because we ought to talk about these different things. But this is going to be our event, Money and American Injustice: How the U.S. Legal System Targets the Poor. It's going to be a great evening event. So be there. Be there. But anyway, I want to talk about why not? Right? Let's talk about it. The Scott Ritter case, right? All over the social media, they claim Scott Ritter is a child sex offender. Right? I'm not going to say the other word, but who knows? I mean, social media is rigged. Do you know the details of that case? I mean, I'm just going to tell you the details of that case because I want you to understand this. He was in a chat room, an adult chat room that was for 18 years only. He was talking to somebody in the chat room who was actually an undercover police officer. And that undercover police officer said that their age was actually 27. They said they were 27 years old, and he continued talking to them. They said they were 22 years old, and he continued talking to them. And then they said they were 15 years old, at which point Scott Ritter tried to leave the conversation. The person said, I'm actually 15 years old. And he actually tried to leave. He said, oh, I'm sorry. And then he tried to leave the conversation. So he's already in a chat room that requires one to be 18 plus. He then is speaking to someone who says that their age is of legal age. They give one age that's legal. They give another age that's legal. The third time they lied about, they said that their age was of an illegal age. And then from there, he tried to leave the conversation. That's entrapment. That's what that is. He didn't harm any actual person. No actual minor was ever harmed. He thought he was speaking to an adult, and he was. The entire thing was a complete complete case of entrapment. That's all it was, right? You look at the details. But yet, they continue to play up this idea of Scott Ritter is a certain word I won't say on this stream. And that's everywhere. It's all over social media. Scott Ritter is this. Scott Ritter is that. No, he's not. Look at the details of the case. He was entrapped. He was completely entrapped. And what was done to him was completely wrong. All right, let me write it down. And more super chats are appreciated. Super chats are always appreciated. It's completely wrong what they did to Scott Ritter. And social media is very good at painting a picture of people. It's not accurate. Scott Ritter is a father. Scott Ritter is a loving husband. Scott Ritter is an anti-imperialist. And, it was unbelievable what they did to him. And I just want you all to understand that cancel culture is rigged. I'm watching things happen right now, right? I'm watching certain people lashing out and certain people that, they're going for everybody right now. They are like, right now, they're scraping the barrel. They're like, who haven't we canceled yet? Right? They're trying to figure out who is it among the anti-imperialist voices who they haven't canceled yet, and they want to cancel them. That's what they're doing right now. It is bonkers. They are finding people like they were going after Rainer Shea lately. They were going after some other people who I won't mention here. You guys know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't, and that's okay. But they targeted. They're just finding anybody at this point. Anybody who is part of, who wants peace with Russia and China, who's supporting the Rage Against the War Machine coalition. They're just targeting any of them. And people are reacting in various ways, and they're reacting in strange kind of ways to all of this. But what's important to understand is that all of this is very, very selective, right? It's very, very selective. It is not based on what any of these people have actually done. It's not, right? It's not based on anything these people have actually done. And it's not based on any actual crimes or anything. It's all selective. It is all very, very selective, and it's all very, very carefully done. And I'll tell you some stories here. But the first thing to tell you is, what the biggest cancel I've ever had was? For the biggest cancel I've ever gotten, right? I do a lot of controversial things. I've been called a lot of things, but the biggest cancel I ever got was when I tweeted out, if you're against abortion or against gay marriage, I might disagree with you, but you're still my comrade. I tweeted that out, and that is the biggest cancel I've ever gotten. That tweet had thousands and thousands of retweets of people cussing me out, people saying that I want to kill gay people, that I'm racist, it was weird. And Humanist Report tweeted it out. And it was like every Sam Cedar, all of them were jumping on top of me. And that's the biggest cancel I've ever gotten. I've done way more controversial shit than that, as you all are aware. Why in the world was that what they jumped on? Because they needed to make someone the bad guy around that issue. And I've thought about that. I've gotten canceled to various degrees. There's big cancels, there's little cancels, That's the biggest cancel I've ever gotten. That cancel that I got, saying that I was willing to work with people who disagreed with me about abortion and gay marriage, which shouldn't be a controversial statement at all. If you ever go to a Palestine rally, you think those Muslims who march for Palestine, you think they support gay marriage? You think they support abortion? But I'm willing to work with them, right? That's the biggest cancel I've ever gotten. So that right there tells you how controlled this is. But, we can go down the line, right? Vosh, widely understood. He's this big bread tube guy who supports Joe Biden, was calling himself an anarcho-Bidenist. He's a big supporter of sending weapons to Ukraine. Vaush has been sending pictures, has admitted to sending pictures of his genitals to women. He's admitted to doing that. Doesn't even deny it. He went by Irish Laddie in Destiny's chat, and he sent pictures of his genitalia to women, some of whom were underage, from what I understand. He was underage also at the time, but that doesn't matter. He was sending pictures of his genitalia to women. And you'd think he would get canceled for this, right? And there has also been reports from people who knew Vaush, Drama Report and others have run articles where Vaush is accused, say his friends say he openly brags about looking at child pornography. But does Vaush get canceled for this? I mean, you know about it, I know about it, but we're a fringe, right? And they've just chosen that this doesn't go viral, and it doesn't. And Vaush gets promoted widely, even though he sent pictures of himself against non-consensual pictures of himself to women, even though people that are in his friend circle have come forward and said he looks at child pornography, even though he routinely on his streams will defend child pornography. But he's allowed to be Vaush because it's rigged. Take a look at what they did to Nick Brana. This is a classic one. Nick Brana is the leader of the People's Party, right? He's a hardworking, he was somebody who worked for Bernie Sanders. And then after he saw, and many Bernie Sanders supporters in 2016 saw how rigged it was, in 2020, they broke away from the Democratic Party. They formed the People's Party. They formed the People's Party. Now, what did they hit Nick Brana with? Well, Nick Brana, he was a member of the People's Party. And there was somebody else in the People's Party, and they dated. They had a relationship. Well, you're not supposed to do that, right? You're supposed to, keep your personal life out of the group, whatever. Well, they dated, and then they broke up. And then, the leaders of the organization said, well, you shouldn't do that. He was kind of censored for dating within the group. You're not supposed to do that. End of story. But then they split over the vaccine question, over the vaccine mandate. They split over the vaccine mandate. And then after the people that were in favor of vaccine mandates and, after they broke away, suddenly they claimed it was sexual harassment. It was sexual harassment that he had dated this person while they were a member of the organization. And then on the very same day, just immediately after, they announced that they were considering running Jimmy Dore for president. They escalated it to rape. They said it was rape. And what is the allegation? Well, the allegation is that he did something while they were dating, but because he was the leader of the group, it somehow wasn't consensual or something like that. You look into the details, it's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. It's complete bullshit, right? He didn't do anything wrong. He dated somebody in the organization. Okay, maybe that was wrong to date somebody in the organization. Maybe he shouldn't have done it, but that's it. But all over Twitter, anytime anyone mentions the People's Party, they throw in that, these allegations against Nick Brana that are bullshit. Nick Brana is my friend. I've looked into the details of the case. They're bullshit. And when Cornel West announced he was running for president, all these people said, well, they supported Cornel West running for president, but the People's Party, blah, 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 blah. None of them got specific. None of them got specific because there's nothing to get specific about. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And the more you look into it, it's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. He dated somebody in his group. They had a breakup, and they're trying to make that into rape, which it's not. Okay? It's not. Nick Brana didn't do anything wrong. Well, again, other than dating somebody in the organization, which maybe you shouldn't do, other than that, he didn't really do anything wrong. For the most part, he didn't do anything wrong. Right? And they've blown that up into something that it completely isn't. And they've attached that to his name because they're smear artists. It's rigged. And they do this. They do this. They absolutely do this. And the fact that he's building an in real life organization, the People's Party, The fact that he's doing that is one of the main reasons that they've targeted him. They're not afraid of people just getting on the internet and talking. But if you build a real organization that puts on real events like Rage Against the War Machine, that runs real candidates for office, they are worried about that. And this is what you got to understand, right? Whether it's what they did to Scott Ritter. And then look, Vosh can send pictures of his genitals to people and he still gets to be Vosh and he still gets to be widely promoted because he's on their side. Most people, when you talk to them about Scott Ritter, when you talk to them about Nick Brown, they don't even know the details. And they don't want to know the details. It's all just, well, the internet said that this person's bad. The internet said they're bad, so they must be bad. Well, the internet says they're bad. And that is how this game is played. The internet says they're bad, and people don't want to know the details. They just assume that, oh, well, if all these people on the internet said somebody's bad, they must be bad. This is how it works. And what it's about doing is it's about keeping people atomized. Keeping people atomized and isolated from each other. Keeping people afraid to go to in real life events. Keeping people afraid from building real organizations and movements. Creating an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia. But the only way you can get over this, right? And trust me, I have been through this so much. You have to understand that it has absolutely nothing to do with anything that you have actually done. It has nothing to do with that. You can do this to anybody. All right? They do it to everybody that they feel like doing it to. And they can do it to anybody. Right? They can. They can do it to anybody. Have you, in your life, is there anyone you know, anyone you've ever been in the same room with, anyone you've ever talked to who has a controversial opinion on something? I think you know the answer to that. Everybody knows someone who's against abortion. Everyone knows someone who's against gay marriage. Everyone knows someone who's not vaccinated. Even if you're the most perfect woke person, I can still destroy your reputation. If I have a big social media account, I can still destroy your reputation by saying you associate with anti-vaxxers. You associate with homophobes. You associate with transphobes. Anybody can get hit on that. You ever been in a bad relationship before? You ever have somebody that you dated and it didn't go well? Well, if you become big enough, right, if it's worth their time, they can go find that person. And that person can unload against you. And they can say, oh, he was an asshole, or she was an asshole, or she was such a narcissist, or she abused me, or she mistreated anybody. You can do that to anybody. You can do that to anybody, right? Oh, or they can take your opinion out of context, right? We've all said things that are okay, but taken out of context, given the right emphasis, they can sound awful. They can sound horrible. There are certain topics, I'm not, things related to race, things related to world history, that people say things all the time that if they're taken completely out of context could make someone sound like a horrible person. And all it takes is the big accounts to highlight those things, and they can cancel you. And they can do it to anyone that they feel like doing it to. There is no way to avoid it. And one of the most annoying things I see is all these people have it in their minds, well, I can be anti-war. I can be anti-imperialist, but I'll do the right things. And I won't shake hands with the wrong people. And I'll say all the right things, and they won't be able to cancel me. Wrong. You are wrong. For 1,000 points, you are wrong. It doesn't work that way. And People just have to get that through their heads. They just absolutely have to get it through their heads that you cannot, if you do this kind of work, if you oppose the war machine, if you stand in solidarity with Russia and China, if you stand in solidarity with Venezuela and Iran, they're going to cancel you. Any outspoken voice who takes anti-imperialist positions, who opposes the low-wage police state, they will cancel you. We now have the Twitter files, folks. We have the Twitter files. We know the FBI that actively monitors people it considers to be foreign assets is working with Twitter to decide what tweets go viral and what tweets don't. It's revealed. Elon Musk revealed all of it, but he didn't stop any of it. Never said he was stopping it. He just revealed that it existed. Social media is rigged. And on the one hand, it's rigged to make sure you see the messages they want you to see. Number one. But number two, social media is rigged to inoculate you against the voices that they don't want you to hear and to intimidate you with the threat of having your reputation destroyed. Social media is one of the most sinister social engineering operations that has ever existed. And they use it against anti-imperialist voices all the time. And honestly, in my opinion, I think that they were prepared to use it against Cornel West. I think the reason that Cornel West decided to move toward running with the Green Party was because they were prepared to use it against him. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but, you know, stuff, whispers go around, and it looks to me like they may have been threatening. You know, they already ran an article on MSNBC calling him right-wing, and they were ready to pull the trigger on Cornel West with this cancel culture stuff. They were ready to. You know, if he runs for the Green Party, they're just a third-party campaign. No one, you know, they run in every election, and it's just kind of, it doesn't make a splash. But the People's Party that could appeal to both Trump voters as well as you know, Biden voters, that a breakaway from the Democratic Party, mobilizing people to get ballot access in multiple states, all of that, I think they were ready to, you know, and they consider the People's Party, because the People's Party is anti-war. You know, it had Rage Against the War Machine. It opposes sending weapons to Ukraine. It's been critical of the vaccine mandate. They consider the Rage, you know, the People's Party to be a foreign asset. And they were ready, just like they've pulled the trigger on Nick Brana and tried to destroy him. They were ready to do that to Cornel West. Now it looks like Cornel West backed away. That's what it looks like. And that we just have to operate with this assumption, right? And if you're going to get into this game, it's frustrating. And I keep reminding myself that people, you have to live it. You have to live it. Look at my debate with Vosh. I tried to be nice in that debate because I am used to working with people in real life. I could have been a lot meaner to Vosh in that debate, but I know that you don't win people over and make alliances with people if you're mean. And my goal in that debate was to try and win over Vosh's audience and try to at least communicate and win over people in Vosh's audience. I was too nice in that debate, but there was a reason for that. I was nice because nice is what you do when you're trying to win people over. But these people are not nice. And it's rigged, right? You have to understand all of this, right? I look at what I've been through. I've learned this over time. Peter Coffin has learned this over time. And I get angry with people because I see people who haven't yet learned this. And it pisses me off. It frustrates me because I feel like behind their, you know, they're not knowing this, right? You know, behind their not knowing this, there's an element of assumption. right? There's an element of arrogance. They assume that, well, we must just be stupid. Those of us who've been canceled, we did something. We're just not as smart as they are. And that pisses me off because, trust me, I tried to not get canceled, but I got canceled once. I got canceled again. I got canceled again. I have been canceled 100 times, right? They've canceled me as a white supremacist, which I've never been. I was arrested protesting police brutality. You know, my record opposing police brutality, supporting the immigrant community a mile long, doesn't matter, right? They've canceled me as a white supremacist. They've canceled me on a lot of issues. And do facts matter? No, because they can do this to anybody. They can do this to anybody, and they will do it to anybody. They will do it to anybody. Anybody. Anyone. They will do it to anyone who is anti-imperialist, and who's especially anyone who's building an in real life organization. And they're trying to prevent people from doing what needs to be done. At the end of the day, if you're just getting on the internet and you're just on the internet saying, you know what, America's an evil, racist settler country and it's going to fall apart, it's going to burn down, it's going to be destroyed. If you just say that, they don't really care at that much. And if you're just on the internet saying, oh my God, the left are stupid and they're all freaks and trans, I don't agree with trans, and you do that, they don't really care about that. But if you start putting forward a message of economic populism, the working class, demanding jobs, healthcare, and education, a real program to rebuild the country, if you do that, and also if you build a real organization, you're not just spewing negativity on the internet all the time, you're a threat to them. And they are going to throw everything they've got at you. And they'll keep finding shit. And they'll keep twisting it and making it into something it's not. And look, they'll even try to throw you in prison. Look what they're doing to the Uhuru movement. They're actually trying to throw them in prison. You want to talk about being canceled? Jesus Christ. Right? They put Lyndon LaRouche in prison. Many communist leaders throughout history have gone to prison, many anti-imperialists. And what we need to get through our heads is that we will not be controlled by Silicon Valley fascism. That's what this is. This is Silicon Valley fascism. And at the end of the day, the internet is a big illusion that does not matter. The internet does not matter. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. All that matters is building an in real life organization. But you know, amid all this darkness and negativity about how social media is manipulated, there's a little glimmer of hope in this. A little glimmer of hope. And the hope is this. Imagine what we could do with social media in a socialist society. Imagine if we could design an app. We could design an app that makes people smarter, not dumber. Think about it. I mean, you know, your phone tracks your emotions. It finds out what makes you tick emotionally. They've got it all. Your phone is basically designed to read you psychologically and market things to you and manipulate you. But imagine under socialism, in a revolutionary society, we could actually design social media and artificial intelligence so that your phone made you smarter, not dumber. Think about it. That's amazing. Can you imagine what we could do with social media if it was in the hands of people that used it for good rather than for evil? Right? I mean, the potential is amazing. It's astronomical, the potential of what you could actually do. The problem is right now, social media is in the hands of private companies that use it for profit. And profit comes from engagement, and that means getting people to fight with each other. But also, they have a Malthusian degrowth agenda, right? They believe there's too many people in the world because of climate change, etc. And on top of that, to top it all off, the intelligence agencies, the FBI is in there manipulating it to serve foreign policy goals. But we could actually design in a socialist society a social media app that would make people smarter, make people more motivated, make people happier and less depressed, make people encouraged to exercise and more physically fit. With this power in the hands of good forces, we could do really good shit. And that's inspiring. That's really inspiring. Really inspiring. That's really important to think about. Right? We could actually use social media for good rather than evil. And who's to say we have to wait until after the revolution? Right? As CPI gets going, I would like to eventually migrate CPI off of the demon app called Twitter, the demon app called YouTube, the demon app called Facebook. I'd like us to eventually have our own social media. Now, that's a long way away. It's a very long way away. But new platforms emerge here and there. Some of them get bigger than others. Rumble is an alternative. It's pretty good. But wouldn't it be great as CPI, as our anti-imperialist network expanded, wouldn't it be great if we had an app for our members and for our people and for our community that promoted our goals? I think we could do that. I think that's a goal that CPI can have. You know, in the next couple of years, we continue to grow as we're growing. If we continue to recruit people and we continue to gain allies with tech savvy, I think we could eventually, at Center for Political Innovation, design an app that's like Facebook, it's like Twitter, but it's for our members. It promotes our message, and it makes our members better. It motivates our members to be happier, to connect with each other, to have meaningful relationships, to exercise, to be more physically fit and healthy. Look, if we're going to have social media, why not design our own social media app for our community that does the opposite of what these demon apps do? Look, I'm on YouTube right now streaming. I'm on Facebook streaming. I'm on another app streaming. And we're streaming on these apps. Right? And we got to be on these apps to some degree or other because that's how these things work, right? You can't just completely vanish. We want to bring in new people, right? We want to bring in new people to our community. That's what we want to do. However, wouldn't it be great if we had an app of our own that we used for good rather than for evil? We used to bring our membership together, to encourage people. I think that would be a great step forward. The Center for Political Innovation. That's something that, obviously we don't have the resources or the capability. No problem. We don't have the resources or the capability to do that right now, but I think we could as we build this network. This is really important. Maybe there's probably libertarians that would want to build such an app. Right? I mean, and as we're building this Rage Against the War Machine anti-imperialist bloc of people of many different ideologies that are part of our bloc, people from the LaRouche movement, socialists, libertarians, different people, religious folks, as we're building this network, we should have the goal of building a pro-humanity app that we can migrate. We can do streams here and there or whatever. There's nothing wrong with being, but we can live on the pro-humanity app, the app that makes you better, the app that doesn't destroy your self-esteem, the app that all the algorithms are rigged to make you a better person, to encourage and bring out the best in you. Right? I think that should be a goal. And that is a goal toward working toward. Imagine how much better your life would be if you had an app on your phone that helped you to be a better person, helped you to be smarter, connected you with other anti-imperialists. And on top of that, was encouraging you to have meaningful relationships, to be physically fit. An app that nudged you in the good direction rather than the bad direction. Because right now we know that's what YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all of them, they nudge you in a bad direction. What if we had an app that was consciously designed to nudge you in a good direction? I think that would be a great thing. That would be a great thing. And so that is one of my goals for our community. All right? Because look, people say, well, Caleb, that's Orwellian. Well, look, it's all Orwellian, right? It all exists. And if we're going to have an app that tracks your location, that tracks your choices, that tracks you, shouldn't we have an app controlled by us? Anti-imperialists, pro-humanity, pro-growth folks. Shouldn't we have our own app rather than just default use the one by the Malthusian anti-human imperialists? I think it's worth doing, right? Again, people say, well, ideally, there shouldn't be any controllers, Caleb. There shouldn't be any sinister controllers. Yeah, I agree. But, if we're gonna have some apps, if social media is just part of the reality, shouldn't we try to develop good social media rather than bad social media? Those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts tonight. So I just wanted to get that out of my system. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, and let's do the roll call. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who's with us? Who's with us? We got names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? I will call you all out as I see you. Who's with us? All right, we got David from Hamilton, Ontario. John McCarthy in Chicago, who's done so much work in solidarity with Uhuru. Colin in Greensboro. Bendigo, Australia. Lisa Smith in Western Pennsylvania. Girlfriend 97 in Florida. Any plans for the 4th of July weekend? Ribble in Southern Oregon. Tony in Tasmania. Riverside County, California. Heidi in Edinburgh, Scotland. Chris in Salt Lake City. I don't even know what that is. Jenny in Cincinnati. Taue in Sweden. Gabby in Chicago. Shout out to you, Gabby. Taue in Sweden. Luca in Singapore. Patch in Arizona. Andy from Canada. So glad to have you all here tonight. Names and locations. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us? We got Johnny Blaze in Northern Virginia. Johnny Blaze. That's a cool name. Johnny Blaze. That's great. Temple City, California. I do apologize. You're not supposed to say things about people's names. I couldn't resist. But we got Patrick in Maine. We got Briggy in Pennsylvania. We love you, Briggy. Great, beloved member of our community. We got NoHo. We got Ragin' Cajun in Texas. We got Rice from Adelaide, Australia. We got George Citizen who says hi. Hi back. We got Patrick in Maine. Welcome, everybody. Names and locations. We got Lila in San Francisco. Welcome, Lila. I hope you're enjoying the show. We got Molly McGuire in Orange County. Welcome. Right? So glad to be here tonight with everybody. Really, really glad to be here with all of you. If you got more super chats, please keep them rolling in. Give me something to respond to. Get me going. Pitch me a softball so I can hit a home run, or pitch me a fastball and see if I can still hit a home run. Right? We got Paus from Catalonia, Spain is with us tonight. Yeah, let's keep talking, folks. It is just after midnight. It is 12:14 in New York City. I'm here in my lovely Brooklyn apartment, and I'm ready to answer some super chat questions. Before I do that, quick reminder, in case you didn't see on the stream earlier, we are having an event coming up in New York City. We are having an event, Money and American Injustice, July 10th. Great guests, great speakers. It's going to be awesome. So be there. Be there. We're going to be having an anti-war protest earlier in the day. The announcement of that is coming up. So that I just wanted to remind everybody, it's going to be a very, very important event. It's going to be an important event, so I'd like you all to be there. It's going to be great. Special lawyer guests. Not going to say who they are, but you'll find out after the event. Special lawyer guests. Couple lawyers that are speaking. And in addition to that, we got Jose Vega, the famous Schiller Institute disruptor. We got Chris Halali. We got Nick Brana of the People's Party. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. So be there. Please be there. All right. So now I'm going to start answering people's super chat questions. All right. At some point in my life, I let myself be carried away by bread tubers similar to Vosh. I began to question their views. Well, look, everyone starts somewhere. Everyone starts somewhere. You got to start somewhere, but you learn. You learn. And that's the point. We're all learning. And I made this point on the previous stream, and I will make this point again. We have to create an atmosphere where people don't feel bound by every decision they've ever made. Because if you can't teach people, things if they're not allowed to learn. And if people aren't allowed to learn, then you can't teach them anything. And if people can't change, then what are we doing? We're trying to change the country, for Christ's sakes. You have to create room for people to change, for people to say, you know what? I used to think this, but now I think this. And we emphasize that in the Center for Political Innovation. I used to be a synthetic leftist for many years. There's people in our community who, used to be on the right, used to be, on the synthetic left, used to be mainstream. We all start somewhere. That's okay. People can change. Now, at some point, if someone demonstrates that they're a danger to the community, not that they have a bad opinion, but they're like a danger, they're like a liability, they put the group at risk, then you got to get them out of there, right? You can't have someone who's going to put the community in danger, right? If someone's provocateurish, if they're coming in trying to talk about doing illegal shit, you got to get them out of there. If someone's coming in and being harmful to other members, bullying other members, or being harmful to other members, you got to get them out of there. But we should be welcome in our community for people who have had one view before and have changed. I think that's it. It's a very important thing. And if we can't create a space for people to say, I used to think this way, now I think this way, you can't do that. If you're going to play this game where someone's, someone's bound by whatever position they take, people are screwed. I mean, people are completely screwed in that situation. People are completely screwed. And I see a lot of people, and that's the situation where people all just, it's not about actually building anything. They just want to feel like they're better than other people. And that's why people get into this game, this I'm better than you. Well, you used to do that. We got to create room for people to say, you know what, I used to think this, but now I think this. And part of the problem with social media never can forgive anybody, never can let people change. And as a result of that, people don't change. If you're being attacked on social media for some view and you say, wow, I wasn't considering that, I'll have to look into that. That's a fair point. You're going to get destroyed. And that's awful. You can't engage politically in an atmosphere where people can't do that. But, if you're arguing with somebody on social media about China, for example, and they respond to you, wow, that's a point I've never considered. They're just going to get taunted and made fun of. And that's why social media is not conducive to dialogue. It's not conducive to dialogue because it's not safe for people to change their position. If you're going to be able to have a meaningful conversation with people about China, with all the disinformation out there about China, you've got to be willing and able to engage with people in a way that they can go, wow, I didn't realize that. But social media doesn't allow people to do that. So there you go. Congo Independence Day. Can you talk about Patrice Lumumba? Well, Patrice Lumumba is the anti-colonial hero who fought for the independence of the Congo. He was the national hero of the Congo. And if I believe correctly, I believe it was a CIA coup that removed him, if I'm not mistaken. And, Che Guevara fought in the Congo, was a supporter of Patrice Lumumba. I don't know that anti-colonial struggle. I don't know its history as well as I should. I'll just be honest with you. I do know Che Guevara fought there, that Che Guevara mentioned Patrice Lumumba in his UN speech. I do know that Lumumba was removed by a CIA coup, if I remember correctly. He was an anti-colonial hero that was drifting. He was drifting into the pro-Soviet camp. And because of that, he was removed. I know the United States worked against the Congo and its independence, but I don't know the details of that anti-colonial struggle as well as I should. And I've studied different countries like Angola. I've studied different countries, but that's one thing. And again, you know what? I'm being honest with you. I just told you that I just don't know enough about Patrice Lumumba to comment there. And I gave you what I know, but it's not enough. I don't know enough about that anti-colonial struggle. And you know what? I will do that. If I don't know something, I'm not just going to sit here and bullshit with you, right? I'm telling you, what I do know. And that's another thing. We ought to create an atmosphere where people can say, I don't know, right? And I'm telling you, I know that Che Guevara fought in the Congo. I know that Patrice Lumumba was removed by a CIA coup. I think it was early 60s is when Patrice Lumumba was removed. That he was a figure who was important in the wave of national liberation struggles that followed the Second World War on the African continent, as well as in South America and in Asia. But other than that, I don't know enough about it. And so I'm being honest with my audience and saying, you know what? I don't know. And we need to create an atmosphere where people can just say, I know this much, but I don't know more than that. And I wish I knew. And maybe there's somebody in the chat who could step up and make a video or make a post to educate us, because I'm admitting that beyond kind of the basics of that situation, I don't know enough about it, but I want to know. And that's kind of the atmosphere we need to create. Now, the other super chat, what else we got here? Oh, goodness gracious. This app is very strange. So next we've got, there's another super chat that, when do you realize you were in the synthetic left and how did you get out? Oh, that's a really good question. I'll definitely answer that, Funky. When did you realize you're in the synthetic left and how did you get out? Good question. All right. So next we've got David Fox. He says, following from Silicon Valley, can you comment on the ongoing development of big tech and global finance merging? Well, look, big tech, and I talk about it in my new book, which you can order a copy of down below, Where is America Going? Marxism, MAGA, and the Coming Revolution. I talk about the fact that Silicon Valley was largely created by American intelligence. I've gone over that story on these streams before about Brzezinski and his book about the technotronic era, about how the NSA and the FBI and the CIA were involved in loaning money and facilitating the growth of companies like Microsoft and IBM and Apple and etc., Google, Amazon. I've talked about that on these streams. But at the same time, I think David Fox is commenting on the fact that companies like BlackRock and big houses of finance are sinking their fangs into big tech. They want to make sure that there's no wild cards there. And that for a while, it seemed like Silicon Valley, even though it was created by American intelligence, it had its own kind of orbit. It had its own center of gravity. It was doing things that were very Silicon Valley oriented. They seemed to really push transparency and, declassifying things, open source, that I would say probably among actual Silicon Valley people, among people who work in Silicon Valley, the libertarian perspective is pretty common. Ron Paul is pretty popular. A lot of your tech bros tend to be, they tend to be the kind of people that are into the libertarian outlook. And that led Silicon Valley to kind of go a different direction. And the wokeification of Silicon Valley, that kind of came from above. I think that's important to point out as well. There have been a lot of scandals where every so often there's one of these big, somebody is found at Google who's making arguments like women are naturally inferior to men, or there's genetic differences between people of different races or genders. Or you get somebody in the Silicon Valley tech world who's saying things that are just straight up at odds with the woke stuff. That are just that are more libertarian, alt-righty kind of offensive. And people like that, and they make a big show of getting rid of folks like that, because they're trying to prove to the power structure overall that they're willing to promote certain things. And I think that's important to take note of as well. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that big finance is getting into Silicon Valley more. It's interesting. I guess that's all I'll say about that. I don't have specifics, David, but I do talk a lot about, Alan Turing's decoder machine and, Apple and, the Technotronic era and how Southern California, I talk about the Aquarian conspiracy, Stanford Research Institute, Stanford University, is very involved in that. And, if you look at Amazon, I mean, Amazon was basically constructed by the U.S. Department of Defense. So there you go. There you go. All right. Next questions. Any plans for the weekend of July 4th? My wife and I were thinking we might go see that new Indiana Jones movie. My wife wanted to see it. And that's something that I can stomach. I can stomach Indiana Jones. I saw, what did I see? I've seen The Temple of Doom, and I've seen The Last Crusade. I never yet have actually watched Raiders of the Lost Ark. But they apparently made a new Indiana Jones movie, and my wife mentioned that she wanted to go see it, and that's something I could do. I could do Indiana Jones. So I think that's one thing that may happen in this coming 4th of July weekend. My wife and I may go to the movies to see the new Indiana Jones movie. Not confirmed, but hopefully we get a chance. Hopefully we get a chance to go see the new Indiana Jones movie. That's something that my wife and I like to do. We like to go to the movies. It's kind of fun. It's a fun thing we can do on the weekends when neither of us are working and we have a free evening, something like that. So maybe we'll do that. I don't know. I'm not going to any picnics or anything like that. Oh, what else? I'm going to meet a friend tomorrow in the morning, actually. Late morning, I'm meeting a friend. We've got our Zoom call, our weekly Zoom check-in with the Center for Political Innovation, and I'm constantly getting ready. I've got a lot of stuff to do to get ready for our July 10th event. A lot still needs to be done for the anti-war protest, and then the evening event that we're having on July 10th. So that's going to be important. So yeah, I've got a lot on my agenda. I'm gonna get up early tomorrow and go meet my friend, and then. Yeah, Sunday, I'll be heading into the city. I'm going to be meeting with somebody else. I've had a lot of business meetings lately, people that I meet that are contacts, allies. There's been a lot of that. There's been a lot of just kind of me meeting with people and talking about this is what CPI is doing, finding out what they're doing, and kind of finding out where our goals and agendas kind of overlap. There's been a lot of that lately, right? And that's a lot of what organizing is. It's, meeting people, finding common ground with people, looking for potential collaboration with people, finding out ways that you can help each other fulfill your agenda. That's part of what it means to be political, and that's a lot of in real life organizing, is doing that kind of activity. So there you go. There you go. All right. So we got that. When did you realize you were on the synthetic left, and how did you get out of it? Well, it's a long, complicated story, but one of the main things that I tell people is, I oversaw I witnessed kind of the wokeification of the organization I was in. The group I was in, the Workers' World Party, it always had problems. There were aspects of them that were unhealthy. I think it was very much a cult of personality around Sam Marcy. Now, Sam Marcy died when I was a kid. I never met Sam Marcy, but it was kind of a cult of personality. And some of the ways they related to issues of race was odd and a bit unhealthy. But other than that, they were a Marxist-Leninist party. You know, they believed in workers control the means of production. They raised economic demands. But gradually I saw them become wokeified over the course of the time that I was with them. And it got to the point that they were not ever talking about communism. You know, they were just talking about, you know, gender politics and white privilege and, you know, and throwing the bouncy ball. And we were having meetings where you couldn't raise your hand in the meeting. You had to like throw the bouncy ball to the next person who talked. And, you know, it got to the point that, I mean, they were not doing anything I was interested in doing. You know, and one thing I remember, and I'll never forget this, is, you know, I really wanted to teach people Marxism, and I still do. I mean, that's what I do on my streams. That's what we do at the Center for Political Innovation. I mean, I've studied Marxism, Leninism. I've studied, you know, the history of socialism. And, you know, I really wanted to teach people Marxism, and I was always fighting for the right to teach people Marxism, right? There was always this pecking order, you know, oh, you're not important enough to be doing that. So at one point, I remember in New York City, we started a reading group, and we were reading Lenin. And it was a huge victory for me that we could have these weekly classes every Sunday where we could read Lenin with these folks. It was really, really great. It was a great breakthrough that we could do that. You know, and so it was really great that we were doing that. But you know, we read What Is to Be Done by Lenin. We had classes about Lenin and what it stood for. And then some of the people, it was a lot of younger people. It was a youth group, right? That was always the door. That's how I could do things. Well, I'm a youth, right? And so they'd be like, oh, well, you know, I was in my 20s. Well, I guess the youth can do something. They would normally just block members from doing things. You're not one of the great important leaders or whatever. But, you know, because I was a youth, that was like a door where I could do stuff. And I was always fighting to do things. I wanted to write articles. I wanted to give talks. I wanted to organize rallies. And it was always like, how do you get around the censors in order to do things? How do you get around the gatekeepers to do things? Well, one thing that I could do was I could have classes. So I was organizing these classes where we would read Lenin, and the people in the class, most of whom were not in the party, you know, they were just young people we'd met at rallies that were kind of around us. They wanted to read a book that was not the party line. Right? It was a book it was kind of a third worldist Maoist book. They wanted us to read that book. You know, and I fought against it. And the reason I fought against it is I knew that if the leaders of the party found out we were reading this book that was the party line, that was against the party line, I would get in trouble and I would lose the ability to have these classes. And so I fought against reading this book, and the people got really angry with me. They're like, why can't you let us read the book, Caleb? You know, we read some of the books that are in line with the party, but we can read other things. And I was like fighting them. No, we can't read this book. I look back on that and I realized how stupid that was. You know, we should have read this third worldist book and talked about it and engaged with it politically, talked about why it was wrong. And if you don't let other people pick the book sometime, they're going to walk away. And that's what eventually happened. But the reason I was fighting them was because I had fought just to do this reading, these classes at all, right? And I knew that if we read something in these classes, if it got out that we were reading something that was against the party line, I was going to be, oh my God, they would shut down the classes immediately. And I look back on that situation, I realized how stupid that was, right? First of all, and if I had an office and I had a budget, someone in my organization came forward and said, you know what, I'm going to do classes and we're going to read communist literature. I would say, wow, that's awesome. You know, you need any resources? You need us to help you promote the classes? I would just encourage that, right? Because that's a good thing to do. You know, and like I'm practically begging people to organize classes in the CPI right now. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people who are great and step up to the plate, but sometimes it's hard to make sure every class is filled. Right. So if somebody in my organization stepped up and wanted to lead a class on Marxism, I would say, please, can you please do that? But it was the opposite. It was like, well, you want to lead a class? I don't know. What are you going to read? And it was like everything I was doing was very, very heavily scrutinized. And so I was organizing this reading group, and it was like a huge breakthrough that I could organize this reading group. And then the people in the reading group, who were much younger than I was, they were 3, 4, 5 years younger than I was. They wanted to read something else. I should have said yes, but I couldn't say yes because it was already difficult to just get them to let me organize these classes. And if in these classes it got out we were reading something that was contrary to the party line, oh, it would be unforgivable, right? It would have just been, they would have shut down the classes immediately. And I look back on that and I realized, like, that's why this group was dying. And that was the atmosphere, right? It seemed like there were a lot of people in the group I was in who didn't really do much activism, but they were really good at looking at the other people in the group who were doing things and saying, well, that's racist, that's sexist. I'll never forget this. This was one of the great moments. The anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution in what was it? It was one of the anniversaries of the Bolshevik Revolution. Wouldn't have been 2017 because I was already out of the group then, but it was one of the anniversaries of the Bolshevik Revolution. You know, we had been doing film screenings at the office. You know, we'd screened, you know, the movie about the death of Fred Hampton, the assassination of Fred Hampton. That was pretty good. We'd screened other films. And so I said, I'd like to show the movie October about the Russian Revolution. Well, they said I couldn't show that film, the movie October, because it was too white. You know, they said, oh, you know, oppressed people don't want to hear about that. Oppressed people aren't interested in the Russian Revolution. No one wants to hear about that. You got, you know, there's noise outside. There's like sirens outside. And they said it's too white. You can't talk about that. And I look back on that now and I realize, like, this is ridiculous. You know, what kind of communist group doesn't let you show a film about the Bolshevik Revolution? A film made in the Soviet Union by Sergei Eisenstein depicting the events of the Bolshevik Revolution. Like, what kind of organization, right? What kind of organization that calls itself communist wouldn't let you do that? That's woke. That's the synthetic left. That's the synthetic left in a nutshell. When they say you can't show a film about the Russian Revolution because it's quote unquote too white. You know, I mean, the Russian Revolution opened the door. Opened the door. No, it's just I'm in New York City. There's like sirens outside. Don't worry about it. You know, I got my windows open because it's hot. But you know, the Russian Revolution opened the door. I'm fine, Johnny Blaze. Don't worry. The Russian Revolution opened the door to anti-colonial revolutions all over the world. The Russian Revolution opened the door to the liberation of Southern Africa, the eventual overthrow of apartheid, the Chinese Revolution. I mean, the Bolshevik Revolution was a defining moment. I mean, one of the first things the Bolsheviks did is they had the Congress of the Peoples of the East and talked about anti-colonialism, right? But you know, we wanted to show a film on the history of the Bolshevik Revolution. They said you can't do it because it's too white. It's too white. And that was a moment where I was just like, what is wrong with these people? Right? Because we had just watched a film about the killing of Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was quoting Marx and Lenin up and down throughout the film. So, you know, when these people said it's too white, you can't show the Bolshevik Revolution. You can't show this film about the Bolshevik Revolution because it's too white. You know, that was a bit much, you know, and that it was stuff like that made me realize this was a deeply unhealthy organization. And that again, it was the pandering to wokeness. So that's when I realized, and that there were so many meetings I was going to where we weren't talking about communism. We were throwing the bouncy ball and we were doing the up fingers and the down fingers and talking about, you know, racism. And, you know, as I was leaving, it got weird. I'll tell you this story, right? I mean, why not, right? This is when my wife and I stopped going to the meetings, right? We stopped going to meetings. I was working. I was still technically a member of the party, but we stopped going to meetings because they had a police brutality coalition that they had formed. You know, it was organizing protests against police brutality, which was great. And we organized a couple police brutality protests and, you know, it was pretty great. And Black Lives Matter was starting to get going. You know, the Ferguson stuff had happened. And so we were organizing protests against police brutality, which was good. After a couple big protests, you know, they had a good coalition of people who were coming to the office to help organize these protests, right? It would be like 80 people sometimes would come to the office to organize these Black Lives Matter protests. And what I remember was that there were two African-American men who were prominent leaders, in the Black community, two of them, that are middle-aged. They weren't young men, right? Is that it's too red, exactly. They were middle-aged. They weren't young men. And they were part of this coalition that was organizing anti-police brutality protests, right? They'd been Black activists for a long time in New York City. Again, won't say their names because I don't want to drudge up drama. And they were part of this, and both of them were well respected. And my wife and I watched in horror as both of them were driven out of the group. And it was scary. They accused one of them of, sexual harassment because he'd made inappropriate comments on his Facebook. They accused another one of being transphobic because he had questions about the trans question. And these were well-respected Black leaders. And they mobilized. It was like young college-aged Black women led by a certain trans man. And they drove both of them out of the group. And it was terrifying. And it was like, then they in order to be in the group, they made a rule that you had to take an oath to swear this group is in favor of trans rights. And I'd never seen anything like it. And at that point, my wife and I said, we're not going back to this coalition meeting. It was terrifying, honestly, because these two men, okay, one of them wasn't pro-trans and it said we in the Black community, we don't like the trans thing. He's kind of a Black nationalist. Drove him out of the group. Another guy in the group, he'd made some inappropriate comments on Facebook, right? He liked to flirt with women on Facebook. He'd made some inappropriate comments on Facebook, middle-aged Black man. He made some inappropriate, and they had practically had a trial for him in the group. And my wife and I watched that and we were like, oh my God, we don't want to go here because we were afraid they might do something to us. Or they might start a campaign against us. If they're going to, these are two well-respected Black organizers, both of them from more or less a Black nationalist perspective. And they went after them viciously. It was terrifying. And so we stopped going back to the coalition meetings. And at that point, I had another job. I was working as a journalist and I was going to party stuff. And I was so angry with the party because they weren't growing, et cetera. And then, when they started, they went after these two Black leaders. That was so weird and scary. We stopped going. But then, then I remember, and this was a defining moment for me, right? This was probably the last straw for me. Was they had a meeting, and they had a meeting in the middle of the day, and they demanded that I go to it. And I was like, I'm working, I'm not available. And they just demanded that I go to this meeting. No, you got to go to this meeting. It was 10 in the morning and I was working that day and I was on call for my job at the UN and no, you got to come to this meeting. It's so important. You got to be there. So I came to the meeting and the meeting was all about this coalition, this anti-police brutality coalition that they had built. And it was, why are we not recruiting any of the people to join the party? And I sat there in the meeting and I listened to the leader of the group say, we have 80 people coming to our office every week and none of them want to join the party. None of them want to join the party. Why is that? And I sat there in this meeting listening to them over and over again. Why is it that they all know about the party? They know what the party is, but none of them are joining. Why? Why are none of these young people who come to our office to organize police brutality protests, why are none of them joining the party? And at that point, there was really no way out. They turned to me and they asked me, Caleb, why are these young people coming to our office to organize police brutality protests? Why are they not joining the party? And they asked me, and I couldn't hold. I had to give them an answer. So what did I say? I said to them, I said, they're not joining because they don't agree with us. This party supports North Korea. This party supports China. This party believes in an ideology called Marxism-Leninism. And these young people don't believe in that. And if you want to win them to join our party, you need to win them to support that ideology. And you guys have it in your heads that people are going to become communists because they just go to protests. You know, they think protests are really cool and hip, and they're just going to join some group that supports North Korea because we do a lot of protesting. And that ain't going to work. If you want to win people to support your organization, you have to be able to defend your political line. You have to be able to explain why they should support Marxism, why they should support North Korea, why they should agree with you. That's what you got to do. And I basically called them out. I said, look, you guys have this attitude that ideology isn't important, that we just go with whatever's popular in the movement, and we just organize around whatever the latest trendy liberal cause is. And you assume that these people are all going to become communists because of that. And I said that that's not how it works. I just said, look, these people aren't joining because they don't agree. If you want them to join our group takes some positions that are pretty far out of the mainstream. We need to win people to support those positions. And I spoke. And after the meeting, a number of older members of the party very carefully came to me and said, that was really good that you said that, Caleb. I'm really glad you said that. That was really brave of you. You know, but I knew I'd crossed a line, right, by saying that. That night, I got a phone call. You fucking piece of shit, kid. You come into this meeting. You lecture the older people in this party. You think you know everything, but I got my head ripped off for that. You know, how dare I say that, right? How dare I lecture the leadership of the party? They know, and they just ripped my head off. And I remember I was sitting there and I was holding my phone. I'm listening to the leader of the group, you know. I'm sitting here looking at him on speakerphone and listening to him just yell his head off at me. You know, just cussing me out. He's just, you know, he's having like a deranged rant because I dared point out people don't join us because they don't agree with us. And we gotta, you know, if we want people to agree with us, maybe we should like have classes about communism and teach people about communism because people aren't going to join us on the basis of tailing after whatever the liberals are doing. And he finished ranting up and down the wall and just cussing and swearing. And, you know, he's just like seething. I guess I touched a nerve. And I said, well, gee, Larry, I'm really sorry that I'm really sorry that I've hurt your feelings so much. You know, this is something I'll try to work on. I realized like this is a nutty group. And after that, it was like you couldn't pay me to go to their events. I didn't want to go to their events after that. I'm like, this is a hopeless group of people, right? You know, and I was just like, this is insane. Like, you know, I will say that after I said it in the meeting, it was like a ton of bricks had been lifted off my chest because I was just like, I've been wanting to say that for years. And that the problem was movementism. They just had it in their heads that whatever the latest trendy liberal cause is, whatever the Democrats are doing, police brutality, you know, whatever the Democrats are doing, wokeism, transgender, whatever the Democrats are doing, we just do that. We just do that. And somehow these people will join us because we're doing it. It doesn't work that way. You know, that's called tailism. Lenin wrote about it in What Is to Be Done. But more than that, it's even worse than that. Because it's not just tailism, because we're at the point where the people who are doing that kind of stuff, the movement, if you want to call it that, the left, is more pro-war than the right. More pro-police state than the right. In fact, I would argue that this fake synthetic leftism is the primary ideology of the imperialists at this time. So if you're tailing the movement and the left, you're getting far off course. You're getting far off course. The Uhuru movement, black revolutionaries who are facing 10 years in prison, who supports them? Tucker Carlson, Glenn Beck, Kim Iverson. People that are right-wing are defending them. And the so-called left has abandoned them for the most part. Who's cheering for sending weapons to Ukraine? The so-called left. Who's getting up in Congress and opposing sending weapons to Ukraine? It's the right. And that if you're attached to the left wing of imperialism in our time, you're on the wrong side. There was a time during the Cold War where the so-called left, or the Democrats coming out of Roosevelt, the Democrats wanted to de-escalate military tensions with the USSR. The Democrats were more in favor of labor unions. But, that if you were a communist in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, it made sense that you might see the Democrats as the lesser of two evils, as potentially joining a united front. That is not the case any longer. That is not the case any longer. In fact, at this point, wokeism is the main ruling ideology. Now, that could change. Right? Politics in America is pretty weird these days. It's pretty goddamn weird. So, let's not say that that's permanent. It's certainly not permanent, just like the state of the left, is not permanent. But if your orientation is to follow the movement and follow what the left, the so-called left, is doing, right? This was back in 2015, 2014. They were already veering way off course. And if that is your orientation, at this point, they're way off course. PSL, Party of Socialism and Liberation, their position is that after January 6th, the Democrats didn't do enough to repress dissidents. Brian Becker, I quote him in my article. Brian Becker has used the term sedition to describe Trump supporters, and his critique of the Democrats is not that they used January 6th to pass all kinds of sweeping legislation to outlaw and suppress freedom of speech. Oh, no, it's that they didn't go far enough. They're cheering for the police state at this point. I mean, it's horrifying. It's utterly horrifying what we're seeing out of the so-called synthetic left. And people don't want to recognize that the left are more pro-imperialist, more pro-war, and anti-populist, anti-working class than the right are. And that, look, the Rage Against the War Machine Coalition, libertarians will work with us. Right? People that are, Tulsi Gabbard, conservatives, and that we have to, at this point, the left-right dichotomy doesn't work no more because they've created a left that is so synthetic and so fake that it's better to just, that's why I raised the slogan, out of the movement to the masses. I'm not interested in trying to organize a coalition of synthetic leftists. And that's what all the communist groups are doing. They all think, well, I'll be the one to call the rally. I'll call the rally, and then I can be the boss because I called it first. And all the leftists will come to my rally, and I can be the boss. Doesn't work like that. And I'm not interested in that. I am not interested in being king of the protest cage, being king of the movement. I'm interested in building a real socialist mass movement to stop the war and building an anti-imperialist bloc and a network within the United States. That's what I want to do, right? And that in order to be a real anti-imperialist, in order to really oppose war and the below-wage police state, you have to break with the left. Because at this point, they're demanding that everybody who is in their sphere, they're going after all of them now. I mean, like, point by point by point, they're going after all of them. Right? I mean, the latest thing, Rainer Shea, he's been critical of me in the past, but lately he's been a little less so. But like, they're going after him now, right? He's just, what has he got, a Substack? And it's like, oh, this Rainer Shea is no good. No, they're going after him. They're going after all kinds of people right now. They're scraping the barrel. Who haven't we canceled yet? Oh, we haven't canceled this person. All right, destroy this person's reputation. Oh, we haven't canceled this person yet. All right, destroy this person. And they're just scraping the barrel looking for people to cancel right now. And it is weird as hell. It is weird as hell. And they are amping up. And it's like what people need to remember, and I guess this was the point of my opening stream, and I will repeat it because it bears repeating, is that if you are a genuine anti-imperialist, they will cancel you. And that nothing annoys me more than seeing people try to play this game of, oh, I won't shake hands with this person. Oh, I won't talk to this person. I won't be associated with this person. And then I won't be canceled. Bullshit. You want to not be canceled? Don't be anti-imperialist. Support the police state. Support World War III against Russia and China, and then maybe you won't be canceled. But other than that, if you're a genuine Marxist, a genuine anti-imperialist, they will cancel you. They will. And the biggest cancel I ever got wasn't for my position on Ukraine, wasn't for sex gossip. The biggest cancel I ever got was for saying that I was willing to work with people that were against abortion and against gay marriage because of their religious beliefs. That's the biggest cancel I ever got. And that is not a controversial thing. And I tweeted in response many times, what about the Palestinian protests full of Muslims that are against abortion? No response. What about, Catholics that are against the death penalty? I can't march with them against the death penalty when they're against abortion or against gay marriage. I mean, it was nuts. And that's the biggest cancel I've ever gotten. It was for saying something completely defensible. They will find something on all of you. They will attack you, and that we have to just toughen up and get ready for it. And that it annoys me to see people play the game, because you will never please these people. As long as you are genuinely against the war, genuinely against the police state, genuinely in favor of populism and working class power, they will cancel you. And you will be a Nazi, and you will be a white supremacist, and you will be a fascist and a secret right-winger and a pedophile rapist. They will do it. They will do it. And you just have to toughen up and accept it. You just have to toughen up and accept it. And that's what I want people to understand, because the way they intimidate people is they've already canceled one person, and then they get people to distance themselves from that person as if that's going to get them points. And it's not. It's not. I had kind of a spat with Midwest Marks the other day, but whatever. I mean, they're doing this, right? I mean, they'll learn. They'll see. Right? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You can denounce LaRouche. And they're still going to cancel you. And thank you, Felonious Punk. You can not associate, not shake hands, not retweet people, and they're still going to cancel you. You can never satisfy the cancel culture crowd. You can never satisfy the synthetic left, so stop trying. Stop trying. But also, I will say this, don't fall into the trap of trying to provoke them. I think that there's another extreme that we see online of people who do the opposite. They don't try to appease the synthetic left. They go out of their way to trigger them. Don't. If you go out of the way to trigger them, if you go out of your way to trigger the synthetic left, you make it easy for them. Then that makes it easy for them, right? And they're already, the way the synthetic left works, and this is an important thing, a lot of what the synthetic left does is about scaring people, making people afraid of their fellow human beings. Look, one of these synthetic leftoids, Melinda Butterfield, who wrote a scathing, nasty, vicious attack on the Rage Against the War Machine rally, called it white supremacy and all this. If you read Melinda Butterfield's writing, Melinda Butterfield is convinced that all Republicans want to murder transgender people. No, they don't. They don't. Right? But the synthetic left, they scare people. Right? They make people think that Donald Trump supporters all just want to murder black people. That Donald Trump supporters all just want to murder trans people. And it's part of the manipulation, is making people afraid. Making people afraid, giving people the sense that they're under attack, that they're afraid, that the only people who support them, and that's what the synthetic left is doing. It's largely a politics of fear. Make people afraid, right? And Melinda Butterfield really believes Read the articles that she's written. She really believes that, in red states in Alabama, all people do is sit around and say, all right, let's kill us a trans person today. They don't think that, and then they say, they wrote an article saying that drag queen, the ban on drag queen story hour in Tennessee means it would be illegal to be trans in a public place, which is not what it means. It outlaws erotically charged performances, right? But it's about psyching people up to be afraid of their fellow human beings, to believe that, that everybody who disagrees with them is out to get them, is out to murder them. That's the essence of this Trump derangement syndrome, etc. So if you go out of your way to provoke those feelings, how are you helping? Right? They're already trying to convince you, right? If you're somebody who maybe has questions about the trans thing, they're already going out of their way to trigger people that are pro-trans to believe that you want to kill them. So why go out of your way to reinforce that? Why not say, I've got some questions, but I consider you a human being. I consider you a human being. I respect you as a human being. I think you have the right to do with your body whatever you want, and maybe I'm not with you on women's sports. Maybe I'm not with you on the bathroom thing or whatever, but, I respect you as a human. And I know you're suffering. That would be the better approach, right? And that's not going to get you likes and hits. That's not controversial, right? It doesn't blow up and get you attention. But if you're a trans critical person, I'm neutral on that issue. If you're a trans critical person, why not take that approach? Because that doesn't get you attention because social media is rigged. And that's generally, don't go out of your way to trigger the synthetic left. Right? And this is, again, we're getting back to the basic problem. A lot of these people, at the end of the day, they're just building a social media thing. It's just a social media game. I'm not playing a social media game. I'm not. I'm trying to build an in real life community. I'm trying to build a real organization, a real network of people that can rely on each other, that can trust each other to get real shit done. That's what I'm trying to do. And that means I'm not going to operate in the way of people that just see this as a big game. They see it as a big game. How can I act this way or that way and get the most likes and shares and whatever? We're building a real organization because when the storm comes, all that matters is whether or not you got an arc to get into. That's all that matters. It won't matter. It will not matter how many likes and shares and followers you have. Social media can be a gateway. It can bring people on board. But at the end of the day, we got to build a real network and a real community because shit is going to get real and it's going to get real fast. Shit is going to get real and it's going to get real very quickly. And we need to be ready for shit to get real. We need to have a group of people who can rely on each other. We need to be able to pull off real events. And we need to have a real core of people who we gotta be able to have a real organization here. And that's what I'm committed to doing. That's what I'm committed to doing. And if you want to do it with me, great. If you're willing to endure, to get along with people, to sometimes fight with people, but forgive them and continue to work with them. If you're willing to have the patience to sometimes not see the results you want, because that's true too. A lot of people, they want instant results, right? They want instant results. You can't always get instant results. You can't always get instant results. And sometimes you try something and nothing happens. Sometimes you have a small rally and it gets barely any attention. Sometimes you hand out the leaflets and not a single person responds. Sometimes you hang up posters all over your college campus and they get ripped down immediately afterwards. That's happened to me before. But you got to just keep going. Right? And that it's not easy. It requires a certain strength of character to organize. Shout out to Noah. Noah didn't just go to the Marianne Williamson event tonight and have that conversation that I played for you all earlier. He went by himself to that event. There was not any other CPI people at that event with him. Other CPI people in Boston, they weren't available that day. He went by himself as the only person from the CPI. And he confronted Marianne Williamson all by himself. Props to you, Noah. That requires real strength of character to do that. That is not easy, but you did it anyway. That is the kind of strength of character we're looking for. We need people who can be strong enough to say, I'm committed to this, and I'm going to fight with people. And there'll be people that I don't like that are involved in this. And there'll be situations where I'm not seeing a payout and I'm not seeing progress, but it needs to get done. That's what I'm looking for. And not everyone is up to that task. Not everyone can be a revolutionary organizer. Some people can and some people can't. And you got to be willing to have people cancel you for who you've been associated with. You got to be willing to have people spread rumors about you. You got to be willing to have people, people that you used to work with have falling outs. I mean, you got to be willing to make sacrifices. Look, the Uhuru movement are facing 10 years in prison. 10 years in prison, and they're still going. The LaRouche movement, the FBI, I mean, a lot of their leaders were thrown in prison. They keep going. Gus Hall, William Z. Foster, all of them got thrown in prison for believing in communism. They got out of prison and they kept being communists. So what I'm telling you, folks, is that if you're going to play this, if you're going to do this stuff, you need to have strength of character. You need to have strength of character. Not everyone's cut out for it. At the funeral of Lenin, I guess I'll just end with this, right? I'll read to you what Stalin said at the funeral of Vladimir Lenin. And what's funny is Stalin gets attacked for this, actually, which is ironic. But the speech that Stalin gave on the death of Lenin, I think on the death of Lenin. This is the very first paragraph. Many people attack this as Stalin being an elitist. This is what they wrote. Comrades, we communists are of a special mold. We are made of special stuff. We are those who form the army of the great proletarian strategist, the army of Comrade Lenin. There is nothing higher than the honor of belonging to this army. There is nothing higher than the title of member of the party whose founder and leader was Comrade Lenin. It is not given to everyone to be members of such a party. It is the sons of the working class, the sons of want and struggle, the sons of incredible privation and heroic effort, who before all should be members of such a party. And that is why the party of the Leninists, the party of the communists, is also called the party of the working class. Now, what's important about that paragraph, right? That paragraph, that is, at the meeting to honor Comrade Lenin after Lenin's death, he could have started his speech with anything. But he started out by saying, communists are made from a special mold. That's how he started. Made from a special mold. And you can believe, I'm just posting the quote in the chat, I'll post the link. You can believe that Stalin understood that was a point that needed to be made. And this isn't for everybody. This is a nasty business. This is not easy, and it requires strength of character. And I'm looking for a few good men, so to speak, right? I'm looking for people who have got what it takes. And there have been a lot of people who betrayed me over the past few years. And I appreciate that, because by doing so, they removed themselves from our organization. And now we don't have to worry about having them around anymore, because they revealed their true character. They revealed that they weren't up for the task. They weren't trustworthy, and now they're gone. And I appreciate that. And that needs to be our attitude. Somebody wigs out and flips out and attacks our group, which happens all the time, right? You'll get somebody who comes to one event, seems really friendly, and then you don't hear from them. And then 2 months later, they make 2 or 3 tweets. Oh my God, I went to the CPI. It was weird. Oh, okay. Good for you. Good riddance. Glad you did it. We don't need you. We don't need you. We're not trying to wage a popularity contest. Yes, we eventually want to enact a mass line, but right now we're trying to build a solid core of dedicated people who can give themselves to this. And that's not everybody. Now, eventually, as our solid core grows, we'll enter alliances, we'll put forward a mass line, and that's a different situation. But right now, we're building the foundations. We are laying the foundations of a solid core of a real organization that can get real shit done. And that requires people that are hard as oak. Elizabeth Young, right? The president of CPI. You know, she's not very public. She speaks at our conferences here and there. But she's solid as a rock. You have no idea how solid as a rock Elizabeth Young is. Like, I am so glad that she is our president. She is the organizational leader of CPI. She is firm as a rock, right? She can make shit happen. She's on the phone with people 24 hours a day. She's making arrangements. And I mean, she is solid. And when we had an organizational crisis back in August, she's the one who stepped up to the plate. When I was basically, kind of disappearing for a while, I found out all that she was doing to keep the group together. And I was like, wow, is this for real? This is amazing. And, she was just she was just a leader in Oregon. I'd met her once before. I'd made one trip out to Oregon, to Portland, and to Seattle. I'd met her at our national gathering before. But she was just a member of the group. She was on all the Zoom calls and all of that. And then when disaster struck, she revealed that she was a master organizer, that she was really dedicated. She had real skills, real patience. And she demonstrated that she was the kind of person you need to lead your organization. And it was me. And I said, and many other people agreed, we made her the president, but she was already the president. She was the president without ever having the title because she was doing more work to build the organization than anybody else. She was already the president. We said, you know what? You're the president. But she was already the president. She was already the president because she was the one holding the group together. She was the one making shit happen. Right? And this is what real leadership is about. Real leadership isn't a title you can inherit. It's not a crown you can pass on. Real leadership is forged by building real relationships and carrying out real operations, getting real shit done. That's what real leadership is. And I've met so many clowns who do not understand that. They don't get it. They don't understand that. You can't inherit a crown. It's not like a crown that gets passed on. It's not a farm you inherit. Real leadership is forged by carrying out real operations and getting real shit done. That's what real leadership is. Real leaders are not great for what they do. They are great for what they enable and encourage other people to do, to find strength within themselves they didn't know they had, to push people forward, to enable other people to do things, to show people their own abilities, to maximize other people's potential. That's what real leadership is. That is what real leadership is. And that's what people don't understand. CPI is an organization of leaders. Every member of CPI is a leader. We want every member of the CPI to have great accomplishments. We want to utilize the organization to embolden people, not to suppress people, not to fulfill the egos of one person or another person, but to empower and push as many people forward as possible. That is the purpose of CPI. That's why we're doing what we're doing. I talked about this in a presentation I gave at our recent retreat. I'm eventually going to edit that and post it online. I got a lot of other stuff I need to edit beforehand. But that, if there's ever been a point that needs to be made, it's this. Right now, we need people who can step up and take responsibility. That's what we need more than ever. We need people that can step up and take responsibility. Because right now our country's falling apart. And the easiest place to hide is to go, oh, there's no hope. It's all falling apart. It sucks. There's nothing I can do. That's the easiest place to hide because that absolves you of any responsibility. But we need people who can say, you know what? Things are bad, but I can do something about it. I can do something about it. And I'm looking for a group of people who can work with me to maximize my potential, to maximize doing something about it. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. If you want to come along with me, please do. And if you don't, see ya. You know? And if you can't stand the heat, get out of the sun, so to speak. Right? And you just tunnel vision, comrades. Tunnel vision. Because I think Jesus Christ said, straight is the gate and narrow is the way. Right? This ain't for everybody. This ain't for everybody. Straight is the gate and narrow is the way. Some of us are cut out for this, and some of us aren't. And that's that. So I guess I will be ending the stream at this point. A new upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. While the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today. Good night. Good night.